Morning once again to all. I would request Ganesh Natarajan to take this meeting forward and in the format of fireside chat with Beena Sarwar. Around 9:15, we will stop the chat and open the floor for question answers. Meanwhile, I would request every participant to mute himself and remain mute throughout the meeting. Uh, Thank you. Floor is yours, uh, Ganesh.
Thank you, Mr. President, and absolute pleasure, Beena, to have you with us. And just to add to what our president just mentioned, we have a tradition of having multiple global as well as national speakers coming on Zoom as well as physically in Pune. And Beena, while we would have loved to have you with us in Pune, maybe that pleasure awaits us some other day. But just as a quick background on how I know Beena, in fact, I think Madam mentioned the Aman Ki Asha movement. And I think it was 2009 or 2010 when I got a request from the Times of India group saying that there is an Aman Ki Asha initiative, which I'm sure Beena will talk a little bit about. And would you like to lead an Indian delegation to visit Pakistan? So I had never been to Pakistan before. So it was a bit of excitement and a lot of other things. And we had an amazing delegation of, I think, 8 women and 5 men who visited Pakistan at that time. And we were completely blown over by the hospitality because we were in Karachi, we were in Lahore, we were in Mohenjo-daro, and the hospitality extended to us by people like Mr. Amin Mahashwani, who's a big industry leader in Pakistan, as well as, of course, Humayun Bashir and quite a few other people, was absolutely outstanding. And Beena, of course, was at that time one of the coordinators of this program. And that's why I said I will ask her to talk about it. But since then, we've kind of stayed in touch and met off and on. She now lives in Boston with her wonderful husband, Aman, who's also on this call, and her daughter, Maha. And I think they still shuttle between Pakistan and the US. And Beena, of course, has been an amazing journalist, is now a professor or a visiting professor right from Princeton to Boston to various other places, and has also founded this very interesting initiative, which is the South Asian Peace Action Network. And when my wife Uma and I were in New York last month, a couple of months back, we had the opportunity to have lunch with Beena, and she told us a lot about Sapan. So I said, you must come and speak at our Rotary. And so that's the background to this conversation. And I'm really delighted, Beena, that in spite of just having got off a flight, I think a couple of days back from Boston to Karachi, you're able to join us. So welcome, Beena. Maybe it'll be a good idea to just talk a little bit about yourself, your own background. I mean, you have a very Indian name, Beena, and so does your daughter. So maybe give a little background, and then we can talk about both the Aman Ki Asha movement as well as, of course, the Sapan movement. Over to you, Beena.
Thank you, Ganesh. First of all, I am so delighted and honored to be part of this gathering, to be invited to speak to you all in Pune. And Pune has a very special place in my heart, though I've never been there, because I see so many wonderful initiatives coming from Pune. Just recently, some friends grafted an Indian and Pakistani mango in Pune. Colonel Pawan Nair, who's there, he's in Pune. Mrs. Reena Verma, who came to Pakistan last year before, the 90-year-old lady who went to her house, her ancestral house in Rawalpindi, is from Pune. And there are so many others. There's a young journalist who's recently joined the South Sapan movement, as you just mentioned, Ganesh. And Sapan stands for the South Asia Peace Action Network. Catherine Abraham, she's just joined from Pune as well. Rohit Valicha, who's a filmmaker, is there. So a lot of our members are in Pune. And I would love to go visit. And you've invited me so many times, but we don't get the visas. And that is actually the biggest issue. So I'm sort of like jumping a little bit more from like myself, I guess, because to talk about this thing that, thanks to technology, we are able to still speak and meet online, but it does not compensate for physical. It is not the same as a meeting physically, because it was so lovely to meet you and Uma in New York, and we've met before also in Princeton before, and of course in Pakistan. And why can't we meet? And if France and Germany can be part of the EU. So let me start with this very provocative idea that one of my mentors, Dr. Mubashir Hassan, said many years ago. He said, if France and Germany can be part of the EU, why can't India and Pakistan be part of a South Asian Union? Let that sink in for a minute, because that's such a preposterous idea in this day and age. Like, look at the way we behave. We look at how we don't speak to each other. We don't, there's no connections. There's always finger pointing. You did this, you did that. But, Ganesh, I mean, we've talked about this before, that the real, the philosophy of be the change, like how can each of us take responsibility for our own actions and stop pointing fingers at others? So how do we, like, my advice to sort of the Pakistan government would be like, open up the visas. If India is not giving visas, you can be the bigger person and say, open the visas, let people come. What's the harm? But so the idea is basically to build a narrative for South Asian regionalism, peace, dialogue, to basically, and everybody you talk to about this idea, that why should this region, which is so geographically, historically, culturally integrated, why can we not meet? My parents, so just to go back to your question a little bit about myself, so my name, maybe it is Indian. My daughter's name is not Maha, is actually an Arabic Persian name, but I do see the Indian connection, because when she was little, so when she was sleeping, I would call her Mahalakshmi, because then she'd be like, a little fortune, like a baby sleeping. She was Mahalakshmi. When she was angry, I'd call her I'd say this is her Mahabharat. And then the third was. Um, I forgot, there's another one also. There were three Maha things that I had attributed to her, but her name doesn't mean the great that it means in the Indian language. But my parents are from Allahabad, Pratapgarh area, the confluence of the Ganga Jamna rivers, which is kind of a symbol of, I think, our syncretism, our syncretic culture. And I just want to say one more thing, and I'll give it back to you, Ganesh, that what really gives me hope is the way that young people are joining this movement or this idea, or like, who don't have any of those connections, of those historic connections of linkages. Like, for example, Reena Verma had her family home in, Pindi that she wanted to visit. I have my family home in Allahabad and Pratapgarh that I would like to visit. But there are so many people who don't have those linkages, and they still, want this kind of connection, to be able to drive across, to be able to go have a meal across. And I'm not just talking India, Pakistan, I'm talking regionally. So I'll give it back, Ganesh. I'm sorry if I went a bit all over the place with
No, no,
that, but
you're absolutely right, and I think all the emotions that we all share, I think, come through very strongly there. And I mean, fortunately, maybe 2009 was a nice year, so we didn't have too much of a hassle getting our visas. Though, of
that
course,
was
we had to.
2010, actually.
That 2010. You're right. You're right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, as I think you were not there, but we had a reciprocal visit where most of the people came to Mumbai, spent an amazing 2 days in Pune as well, and Amina Ashwani Saab was there. And I think it's I mean, fortunate that we could get. Of course, there was the usual hassle of every new city you go in and you go register with the police, and then of course we were actually, I remember, asking when we went to Mohenjo-daro, saying that, look, we saw a signpost saying Larkana, and we said, oh my God, we've heard about the Bhutto graves. Can we go and see it? And I remember that was the first time ever that Amin said, nahi, nahi, Ganeshji, ye mat kijiye. We cannot guarantee that you can go to a city outside what your passport says. So it's actually interesting. And I completely agree with you that one wishes that, this could be one large area where all of us could, freely commute. There's so many wonderful places in Pakistan. And I'm sure there are so many people who would love to visit Pune as well. I mean, India as well, as for so many reasons. But talk to us a little bit about the history of Aman Ki Asha, Beena, because I know that you were part of a very large newspaper group. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that and how this whole partnership that they did with Times of India, how did it take off? And then kind of how did it kind of, I mean, we don't hear too much about Aman Ki Asha nowadays. So what was the genesis and what is the path through which it kind of traversed?
Yeah. So Aman Ki Asha, as you mentioned, so Aman Ki Asha, of course, as everybody who understands Urdu Hindi will know, it means hope for peace. And it was started by the Jung Group of Pakistan, the largest media group in Pakistan, and the Times of India, the largest media group in India. And like you said, we don't hear too much about it anymore, but if you go online to www.amankiasha.com, you'll see that we are still, keeping that narrative alive as well. It was started because, and it was an unprecedented partnership. And I don't think anything like that has ever been done before or since with two so-called countries that don't really have friendly diplomatic neighbor relationships and that are almost at a state of war. It's almost like a Cold War. You mentioned the city visa specific thing. That was part of the campaign we did at Aman Ki Asha. We called it Milne Do. If you look online, hashtag Milne Do. There's also a online petition called at change.org/Milnedo, MILNEDO, which, I don't know how many, 40,000 something, I don't know how many thousand people have endorsed it since we started it, and we need, of course, many more. So they started it, and they had a joint editorial. And our dear friend Imran Aslam, who you might remember, Ganesh, who passed away last year, he was one of the people, I think he drafted that editorial, which was endorsed by the I don't know if that's strictly true, but the editors of the Times of India and the Jung Group signed off. And I don't think anybody else in two countries that have such tensions have done this kind of a joint media platform with a joint editorial before or since. And it really needs to be done. So the idea was, and for the first 4 years, there were a lot of on-ground meetings, as you mentioned. Ganesh, you were part of the IT delegation. We had this the IT contingent. And the Mohenjo-daro trip, took a lot of string pulling because Indians don't get visas to Mohenjo-daro. But I think you're the only ones in years and years before or since who we managed to get those visas for. And like you said, they're city-specific visas. So we had a campaign about, we need a country visa, not a city visa, and so on. There were a lot of other campaigns in that part of the economic dividends, because this is what makes economic sense. Business people, Rotary, many of you are into business, entrepreneurs, and that a regionally integrated region which can trade and exchange in IT, intellectual ideas, economics, trade, commerce, is so much better off economically than we are trading via the Middle East, we are trading via the Far East, we are trading, there's a hundi system, there's the informal, millions of dollars going into informal, into the hands of smugglers because, people want what they want and they will pay for it. So, there's a whole street in Lahore where there's all Indian goods, which are all maybe, not through official channels, and the governments lose so much revenue because of that. Things like, I think we had an energy contingent also, like talking about the need for, to collaborate for energy, solar energy, gas, and stuff like that. So this was Aman Ki Asha. Part of it was, there were these amazing literary, some of you might remember it, from Kolkata to Karachi, like they had these big literary events, poetry, music, the Indian band, the Indian Ocean with Pakistan Strings. There were, Amitabh Bachchan, Gulzar Sahab, the late Zia Muhyiddin, people like that coming together, music, art, culture, literature. So I'll just segue a little to say that a lot of it, Ganesh, a lot of that initiative was very what I would call North India centric. And it has not been officially closed. That, like I said, the website is still there. But since 2014, for multiple reasons on both sides, the on-ground meetings stopped and the events stopped. So I was basically editorially covering the events, and I was producing a page every week called Aman Ki Asha that was published in the Jung, in the Urdu section, and in the news in Pakistan. So luckily that archive, a lot of that is still there. But the thing is, it was very North India centric, North India, Pakistan centric. Now, we have to remember that this is not all of the region, the 1 billion people of the region. It's not just North India. It's not just people who can understand Urdu and Hindi. There are people, we have to remember that we have South India where people don't speak Hindi that much or don't like to speak Hindi that much. You have Sri Lanka, which is part of South Asia, but it is at the cusp of the Indian Ocean. You have Bengal, you have East, India, you have the north of Pakistan, you have the west of Pakistan. So you have Nepal, you have Bhutan, you have, so there's a lot of, so India is the kind of right in the center geographically. And like Manishankar Iyer said when I spoke to him, and that interview is online at southasiapeace.com on the YouTube, southasiapeace.com. And he said that, it has to be, you can't get India out of the equation. It is right in the center. But you have to listen to other voices, and you have to let the other voices talk to each other as well. And Kanak Dixit, who was one of my mentors and a dear colleague and friend who started Himal South Asian, he talks about the South Asian penumbra. So I don't know many of you who know what this word penumbra means. For me, I heard it for the first time from Kanak. And penumbra is basically the soft shadows of the moon that intersect, that are not harsh, not black and white. It's not either or. So, our cultures blend into each other. There's no hard dividing lines. On the borders of each region, you have languages that people, at a certain, there's a blurring of lines. Our identities historically were fluid. It wasn't so hard, and we all have multiple identities. So to honor those multiple identities, to acknowledge that we have, a little, like it was Benazir Bhutto who said, that there's a little bit of Indian in every Pakistani and a little bit of Pakistani in every Indian. And that, of course, is a very broad thing. Like I said, there's all the peripheral areas, but even there, you have that feeling. Like I've come across people from South India, from East, from, Sri Lanka, from Nepal, from, Western Pakistan, who feel that sense of desiness. We are like, when we go abroad, Middle East, England, Australia, whatever, our doctors, people like that, they all work together, IT people. Nobody asks, if you can speak the same language. So the Bengalis from West and East Bengal connect more than perhaps a Punjabi would with a, South Indian, or the Punjabis connect, or so it's the border areas that have been divided by these hard lines that have suffered the most. And I think we have to now put the people front and center. And I think you can see this very clearly all over the world, Ganesh, that what the people want is not what the governments are doing, right? So the people want peace, and the people want to meet, and the people want to, drive a vintage car rally from Karachi to Kolkata and Kolkata to Karachi. I know people in both cities who want to do that, a vintage car rally, you know. So what are we so scared of? And if we are scared of terrorism and violence, well, I think we have to take care of security. I think security has multiple meanings, and the security of employment, of food, of shelter, that is more important perhaps than trying to these hard border security that we keep talking about.
But tell me, Beena, I want to move into this the Sapan initiative itself, and obviously that has all these dimensions that you were starting to talk about. But before that, between 2010 and 2023, just tell us your own life journey, because you're now spending a lot more time in Boston. So it'll be interesting to know, what is the transition that you have seen in your own life.
So I moved to Boston in 2011, and I was still, and that's when, like a few years after Anand and I got married, because he lived in Boston. So I moved to Boston because of that. And I continued running Aman Ki Asha, the website, from there. And then I was looking around for what can I do, as a journalist. Then I got into teaching, as you mentioned. And then, gradually, I think things just kind of all came together in a very organic way. And it feels like very, I don't know, serendipitous the way things happened. The kind of people that I was able to meet, because I live in Cambridge, and this is like a big university town, as you know. So you have Harvard, you have Tufts, you have Boston University, you have MIT, you have Lesley University. And there's a lot of people that come through this area. And then just a little bit further down is Brown University, where I was as an international student many, many years ago. And, the speakers come through, are invited to all these universities, and many of them I know, many of them, sometimes I'm invited to join those panels or those dinners, and because I have that access, it's kind of gave me a perch, which I was not, in Karachi, it was just more focused it was India, Pakistan. But coming to Boston, where I had this access, and then, like I said, these ideas all started coming together. And in 2021, and then, we are on online right now. And this online thing was really, given a boost by COVID, that pandemic that we've seemed to have forgotten about. But, let's remember the trauma. Let's take a moment to remember the thousands of lives, millions of lives lost, the trauma that, especially what happened in India, how bad the situation was. So, and things between India and Pakistan were very bad also, 2019, 2020. And so we were talking, I was talking to a friend of mine in Delhi, alias Samir Gupta, who I think you might have met or not. And we were talking about how, we have to get out of this India-Pakistan headbutting, and remember that there's a wider region, more people. And he reminded me that I have been talking about South Asia for a long time also. And so we convened a meeting, an initial meeting in March 2021. And some of the people who were at that initial meeting are here at this, in this chat, in this group just now. And we had a meeting of about, I think, 80-90 people online. And, Lolly Ramu were there, Fawzia, who's here, Khabar Mumtaz, many others were there. And we came up with this resolution and this 3-point charter, which is which many people who are here have endorsed, a 3-point charter basically calling for the ease of trade and travel in the region, for cooperation in all areas, and to uphold human rights and dignity. So these are basically the 3 main points in the Sapan founding charter, the South Asia Peace Action Network founding charter, and that's everything is southasiapeace.com on, and so the founding charter is at the homepage, and people can endorse it. And I would invite all of you to endorse that charter, which over 60 organizations have endorsed, and over close to maybe 500 people. So this is not a mass signature campaign. This is more like forging those connections. This is more like making meaningful connections and sustaining them. Like, for example, we have sustained our connection since all those years. And these personal connections are really, really important, So it started in that kind of organic way, and then we started having then what happened was that Pakistan had granted MFN, most favored nation status to India, and there was a lot of excitement. So we said, let's do a seminar around that, and then Pakistan took it back and said, no, we can't do it for whatever reasons, and there was a huge disappointment. So then we thought, let's have a meeting about the importance of economic cooperation in the region, not just India, Pakistan. And Amartya Sen came to that meeting. And I think in one of our meetings, we were going to be talking about sports between the region. And at that time, Ganesh, the situation in India was so bad, like in Delhi, the air was full of funeral pyres, the smoke from funeral pyres from people who had died of COVID. So we, at the last minute, the day before that event, we changed it to, the guests came, people like Rajdeep Sardesai and, other sports people who were joining, but we changed the focus overnight. We pivoted and we called it expressions of solidarity with India, grief and solidarity, solidarity across the region, with our friends in India who were particularly going through a hard time. And I know that there were people at that time who said, why should we express solidarity with India? They don't express solidarity with us. We get this kind of pushback all the time from people like, well, India does this, so why should we? And my answer to that is, they can do what they do, but you have to do what you have to do. We have to reach out. We have to be there in solidarity with our friends in India, regardless of what the governments are doing. And we are not government representatives. So I think that's how Sapan kind of grew. That's the spirit behind it. And Sapan, of course, as you know, it sort of like evokes the word like dream, or like it's a sapna, or like also Sapan also has with friendship. And then we started the Sapan News Network, which is a syndicated media service which takes forward these ideas as well. We don't do breaking news. We don't do headline news. We do go beyond the headlines. And the other thing we do is we give a free syndicated service to media around the region. Not around the region only, but from Australia to Seattle, Washington, papers, media outlets have published Sapan News features. And all this work has been voluntary. We've been, just doing it. And it is just, when I look back, we've done over 30 events, including some in person in the Boston area and in Princeton, in Washington, New York, just like small gathering, but most of them have been like these online events, taking up all kinds of issues, from the challenges and wins of sportswomen in the region, to the rights of the incarcerated, the prisoners, to the importance of public health as a basic human right, to the rights of migrant workers, to labor, 30 topics if you go to southasiapeace.com. The events tab lists them all, and we also have been and so more and more people just kind of join this. There's this poem about kafla बढ़ता गया, कदम चलते गए kafla बढ़ता गया. So we've been it's just amazing to see, and the volunteerism, the work that people have put in. And this is not me. I mean, like you can say that I might be like right now a public thing, but people have like Fauzia, who's here, has if she actually has been helping Indian businesses in the New York area, and she actually represented made a presentation about Sapan at at a Indian gathering of business people in New Jersey some time ago. And so it's not just me. There's a lot of amazing volunteers and intergenerational. Like maybe there's Lolly and Ramu, Admiral Ramdas are here. They're among our senior most. My mother, she's 85. And then we have teenagers joining who want to help out, do something. People want to do something. People are tired of the negativism. People want to like, what can we do? So we kind of like, it's a platform, it's a connecting platform. So a lot of, like I said, something like 60 or more organizations have endorsed it. So people are doing their own work all over the place in different places. And it connects also the region and the diaspora. And I just end by saying that, for me, South Asia peace is like if I think of it as like a orb, like a transparent orb with lots of nodes all around and inside, and they're all connected. And we're all connected, and everything is connected. And you can't, just make silos and, keep people away and, like stop these divisions, stop the hatred, stop. So what we are trying to do is we are not trying to counter anything. We're not saying we are against this or that. We are saying we are for this and that. So we are for friendship, we are for peace, we are for love. And I think the concept of radical love, I think, is very important and very close to the hearts of many of us who are part of this.
Wow, that was great. And maybe why don't you stand for president of US instead of Trump? Maybe we'll have a more lovely environment
So
in the US.
no, so here, A, I wasn't born in the US, and B, talking, a lot of us have been talking about this phenomenon. Trump is not just, it's not just Trump, right? We see this phenomenon of the strong man, quote unquote, savior, the one man revolution, and you see that all over the world in so many countries, right? And one of the things that I think has given rise to this phenomenon is social media, because it has bypassed traditional media, which had the gatekeepers, the filters. And yes, all journalists were not perfect and didn't do maybe didn't give voice to everybody. They're more urban bias, college educated bias kind of a thing. But there were filters, there were editorial, there are still, and we are trying to uphold those ethics and responsibility in Sapan News. To have the editorial oversight, the fact checking, the verification, putting things in context. So important. Context is so important. So I tell my journalism students that you have to look at the context, you have to take the long view, and you have to look at the process, not just the headlines. So somehow we have to come back to that. And I don't know how we can, Ganesh. You're the IT person, because this social media explosion, and it gives you a feeling of, so Maria Ressa, right, the Nobel laureate, the journalist from the Philippines. So she calls it astroturf, fake grass, the illusion of reality. So, for example, you have like suddenly all that's visible is people supporting one or other political leader. You mentioned Trump. Let's take Trump as an example. But when you go on the ground, the reality is very different. Not, they don't have as much support on the ground. It's very polarizing. It's very, and the way the system is set up, those who go out and vote, many people just don't exercise that right. And so the ones that are disgruntled and want to advance their, I would say, hate-filled agenda, bigotry, and talk about exclusion, and how we are the chosen people, we are the people who can, like, not accepting everybody's humanity. They prevail because they are louder, more aggressive, more violent, and so they get also more space in the traditional media as well as in social media. So that's why besides the fact that I wasn't born in the US, that's why I'm not going to win the presidency in the US or anywhere.
Okay, so let me. There are a lot of very interesting people in this group, so I do want to give them ample opportunity. But let me ask you one last question. See, you kept mentioning youth, young people joining, etc. And interesting. I mean, you yourself mentioned studying at Brown, and we have a singers group where we have an amazing young woman called Zebunisa Bangash, who's actually a Coke
Yes,
Studio star from Lahore. So
yes,
yesterday she was just posting about when she was in college, and I asked
yes.
her, Zeb, were you in college in Lahore? And she said, no, I was mostly in Boston. So I mean, and so many kids nowadays in India, and I'm sure in Pakistan and other parts of the US, of South Asia, are studying abroad, getting a global perspective. So do you think that is the hope for the future? There are a lot of us who have children abroad, a lot of our children who are abroad, and of course people who will forget a very kind of parochial local destiny, or and really look at they're part of Asia, they're part of the Asian community. Do you think that will pave the way for Sapan to succeed in his agenda?
So, yes, we do. Like I said, we connect the region and the diaspora. Yes. And yes, many people have in the region have people, kids studying abroad and becoming part of the diaspora, connecting abroad. But let's remember that that's the elite, the financial and intellectual elite.
True.
What gives me hope more, I mean, that is of course there, and that is an amazing network, and that's something that we definitely want to tap into, that we want to definitely have. um, it definitely does give me hope, because they do, and that does give these young people who otherwise don't have the opportunity to meet each other across borders when they go, to study in a Western country, and they come across people not just from another country, but from another region, maybe in their own country, which they were not, thinking about so much. But for example, and I don't have that recording. I was invited. This is before Skype and all that. This is in the days of Skype, before the Zoom shoom. There was a student from Kolkata who reached out to me and wanted me to record a video message and those are kids who were not studying abroad. These were, I think they were IT students, and I don't even remember because it was more than 10 years ago. And this is the first time ever that I recorded a video message. And they asked me, and I was in Karachi at the time, and they asked me to record a video message for students in India. I remember the IIT students in Mumbai when I was doing Aman ki Asha, and they wanted to do and these were not kids studying abroad. They wanted to do a partnership with IT institutions in Pakistan, and they partnered with the Lahore University of Management Sciences and with the IBA in Karachi. And the title of their initiative was, I think something like, I forget the name of it, but it was a very Urdu sounding thing. So I said to this young man, I was like, are you sure you want such an Urdu sounding? You're in Bombay, Mumbai. You want such an Urdu sounding name for your, I think it was called, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but it's all there on the Aman Ki Asha website. Something Mohabbat it was. And he's like, yes, this is, we want to use these words. And I think I'll just end with this point that, again, going back to the dominant, narrative, or the dominant, uh, the Urdu, the dominance of Urdu Hindi, like, so the fact that let that also happen, but let also those who don't understand, for whom Urdu Hindi is not the predominant language, let's also give them a space. Let's also learn their keywords and like main things, and like let's have more cross pollination of cultures and regions, and within the region and abroad. So I think, like, again, I said, like, it's all connected, and everything sort of comes together when you take this larger view.
Yeah, absolutely right, Beena. In fact, I think we have adopted words like ishq and muhabbat because of Bollywood. So we no longer recognize them as Hindi or Urdu at this point of time.
Yeah, so yeah, you can't sort of say that, well, this is that. I mean, like, again, like I said, what I said at the beginning, that idea of cross, like soft borders, or sort of gradients and not hard lines. Where does Urdu begin and Hindi start, and where does, there's, I don't know, and if we can incorporate words like of English into all our languages, like, I'm not saying to do away with the classics. Everything has its place, but let's also, I think one very important idea that I want to foreground is the idea of change. The idea that things are not static. There is a momentum. There are things that, you can't, and nostalgia is very beautiful. And yes, the past, is like, it was perfect, but, you can't stay there. You have to progress, move forward, and change is scary. I'll be progressive as long as my daughter doesn't announce she's a lesbian, or that I'll be progressive as long as my son doesn't say he's transgender, or as long as, like, that whole idea of progressive until it comes to one idea, one thing or another. I think, and to recognize those uh, limitations in ourselves and to say, yes, that feels scary to me, but to embrace the change and to move forward and to realize that, however bad things might be looking right now, we are still better than we were before in some ways. Some things, like, I remember the delegations of the Pakistan India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy, and I see Jatin has joined from Mumbai, the PIPFPD, which I was part of since the 1990s, long before Aman ki Asha. We had joint conventions in which up to 300 people from one country were given visas to go to attend a joint convention in the other country. And that is no longer possible. You can't see that happening, but there are other things that are happening, and they can be privileged, and we can still keep aspiring to those, for those ideas. I don't
Awesome.
know.
So, Beena, no, absolutely makes sense, and I think your idea is also excellent. So, let me throw it open now, and before other people ask questions, Tony, Mukesh Malhotra is the founder of our Rotary Club of Riverside. So, Mukesh wanted to have a couple of comments, and then we will get anybody else who wants to ask a question. Let us know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ganesh. Beena, it's been a pleasure hearing and listening to you. I am a son of a refugee who came from Rawalpindi, so my roots are back there. And we had our own little Aman ki Asha when my father and uncle invited about 50 couples from Pakistan to come and live with 50 families in Pune. And this was about 15 or 16 years ago. This was a people-to-people contact that we wanted to begin. And I really do echo and feel that this change that's required, what Sapan is doing is, I think, is giving voice to the silent majority. A lot of us meet each other abroad. And I specifically remember an incident when I was in Saudi Arabia, and there were 3 or 4 guys speaking in Punjabi on the other table. And I just responded in Punjabi to them. And they called me over, and it was only after half an hour of talking to each other and joking around that we realized that they were Pakistanis and I was an Indian. So, I mean, it's that close a relationship which, needs to be engendered, and that, we need to get this people's will across to our governments to say that it's the people who want things to get better. So wish you all the best, and I hope that we can get Sapan actually becoming effective and overgrowing this particular issue that we have at this moment and for so many years now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to know about that initiative of your father's. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, we're now open for any.
It was very, very difficult to do because getting visas for 50 couples was quite a task. Let me tell you that.
That's the biggest thing, right? Yeah, exactly.
Now the
but
biggest delegation.
Because it was under the Rotary banner that we could actually manage it. We did it under the Rotary banner, and the Rotary district governors in Pakistan put in all their influence to get the visas done. And all the members who came were also Rotarians, by the way.
That's wonderful. And speaking of Rotarians, I see that Faiz Kidwai joined from Karachi. I don't know if he's still there, but he really headed a wonderful part of, and it's still there. It was called Heart to Heart, and it was like giving children with congenital heart defects access to surgeries in India. I don't know how many thousands of Pakistani children, and also the Rotarians in Pakistan were also raised funds for children in India, and they had to send the money via Rotary in Chicago because there's no direct banking between India and Pakistan.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Umeshji, over to you to conduct the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm sure many of you would be having many questions relating to the drive being taken by Beena. So come forward with your questions and Beena will clarify.
And I just want to say, I see Urmi also here, who's from Bombay, and she's doing amazing interfaith work in the arts and culture space as well.
Meanwhile, the participants come with the questions. I have a question to you that for bringing about the peace, there is, say, there has to be a peace approach only. And there are many hardliners across South Asia who want to bully the majority of the um citizens' wishes to bring peace around. So how do we handle the hardliners because they are having the bullying approach and they uh, governments, despite maybe having good intentions to say control them, they are not in a position to control. Thereby, the hardliners becomes the main hurdle in bringing about this peace.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about that before, because they become the loudest and they become the most aggressive, and so that they take up all the space. So I think our approach is very simple at Sapan. So we don't try to counter them, we don't try to address them, and we also try to remember that bullies are always cowards. These people who are being bullies and who are trying to impose their own thinking, their way of life, their ideologies on other communities are basically scared of change. What I talked about a little bit earlier, they're scared of change. They're afraid that they're losing their traditional, whatever communities, values, and things like that. But I think if we remember that the core values of humanity are actually very universal, they're very, like things like kindness, like compassion, like when you hear a child cry, it's in any language. The cry of the child is across languages, right? Or universal human emotions like laughter or tears or hunger. So, and the values of like I said, of compassion and of kindness and helping other people, of honesty, being honest to yourself, being honest with others, these are universal values. So it doesn't matter if you're I mean, for them it matters because they're so scared, because they want to hold on to rituals, they want to hold on to artifacts, they want to hold on to whatever it is that they feel gives them their culture. They want control. They're afraid of losing control. So rather than trying to fight with them and try to argue with them, we're like, that is your issue. You have to deal with your fears and your anxieties and your and you're expressing it in a like bullies. And you basically, what happens is that bullies are cowards, and also bullies who use actions instead of words are behaving like children, are behaving like kids who don't have, we tell our children, use your words. They don't know how to dialogue. How do you have a dialogue with someone while holding on to yourself and not giving way to their bullying? So I think, I'll just refer to something that Barack Obama said when he was, giving the speech, this global convention address he gave. And he said, we need more adulting in the world. We need more adult behavior. So all this, when you look back, when you step back and you see how these bullies are behaving, they are just, I'm sorry to say this, and I don't mean to be, sort of gender or whatever, but they're like boys with toys. They're aggressive, and they're just using the hardware. They're not using their brains. They're not using. So, but we can't engage with that. So we have to forge our own narrative and not react to that of others. That's how we are dealing with it. And yes, they are. So I don't know how many, if any of you are familiar with Tai Chi. So I've been learning Tai Chi for the last couple of years. And one of the principles of that is to hold on to yourself, to be grounded and strong, but also flexible. So if somebody comes at you, instead of coming back at them, you duck, you weave. And the Tai Chi symbol is knowledge over power, and knowledge is power. So I think we have to remember that, to hold on to ourselves, not give in to the bullying, not engage with the bullying, protect ourselves as best as we can. And Tai Chi also is a defensive martial art. It's not aggressive. It's never about being an aggressor. So I think these kind of ideas, I think, guide the approach we are taking. And perhaps Jalan, is that, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Jalanji?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Umesh Jalan.
You're Umesh. Okay. So Umesh ji, so I think that, and of course that causes us anxiety, and but we have to sort of deal with that without responding in kind, right? We can't stoop to that level. That's basically my point, I guess. I don't know if I answered your question or was able to give you any kind of. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. We have a tough proposition at
Yes.
our hand and to handle it. And
Yes.
that is what we are not getting the solution, and that is why we are not able to achieve our objective, because there is a conflict of orientation and understanding and say mindset and conflict of interest, what you perceive. And that is what is holding you for bringing about peace.
Yes.
Uh, Anyone else?
Does Rotary
Manu?
work proactively on coordinated programs among Rotary clubs of various South Asian regions?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, and I think Mukesh, maybe you could also answer this. It says, she's asking whether there is an opportunity or has there any attempt made to coordinate across Rotarians in South Asia, Rotary clubs in South Asia.
I mentioned earlier, Faiz Kidwai is here from Karachi, and they did this for a very sustained time, with the children, with the Heart to Heart initiative. So they've done that. But I don't think, I'll let other people speak, but I know that's one initiative, Fawzia, that has been going on, which has, these days, I think it's kind of in limbo because of the, I don't know, the governments, I suppose. I think I see Faiz Kidwai is here and he has his hand up.
I see one hand. Faiz,
Ji.
please
Faiz,
unmute yourself and continue.
Yeah, Faisal, please comment on that.
Yes, good morning. This is Faiz Kidwai, Director, Rotary International. First of all, my compliments to the Rotarians for initiating this program and inviting Beena, perhaps the right person, who has for long years been promoting peace between both the countries. And I'm sure you all must be knowing that it was perhaps in 2012 or 13 when Rotary joined the Aman Ke Asha program, which was initiated by the young group and Times of India, and it went off very successful. Unfortunately, in the last 5-6 years, due to various reasons, more of it perhaps political reasons, that we had to stop doing all those good things which were happening. Now, talking of first of all, let me share one thing with all friends, especially on not in Rotary, and that as far as peace efforts are concerned, my association with Rotary is for more than 30 years, and I know that in all these years I've seen whatever may be the condition between, or the situation between both the countries at the political end, the Rotarians have always been working hand to hand together, directly or indirectly. At times, yes, we do come across challenges, but we never, had a breakdown in our communication, in building a strong bond between the Rotary families, and carrying on whatever is possible. Even today, there are a number of projects and programs which we are doing jointly, where our Rotary friends in India are helping for projects like Beena mentioned, the congenital heart surgeries being done in India. And similarly, so many other projects we are doing in Pakistan. And simultaneously, our Rotarians from Pakistan are helping out various clubs and people and deserving families in India. The Indian children's, they have been funded by Rotarians from Pakistan for the congenital heart surgeries, for education programs, so many other programs. We also have this in, inter-country committees, and between Pakistan and India, again, we have a very strong committee. The Zoom has really connected us pretty well, and there are clubs and there are Rotarians I know who meet with each other almost every week. The Kartarpur corridor initiative, which the Pakistan government took a few years back, is another one opportunity which the Rotarians are willing quite successfully. And I think in every 2 months we see a delegation of about 150 Rotarians from India visiting Kartarpur, and from Pakistan again 150, 200 Rotarians. They go there, they greet them, they meet and have a fellowship for the entire day. So all said and done, somebody was talking about the challenges. Well, friends, if we get bogged down with challenges, I think we'll not be able to move. Along with the challenges, we have opportunities. There are tremendous opportunities for us to get connected and to show the world that not everyone is against peace. I can write it on wall that peace is possible between both the countries. But personally, I feel we don't have to see the top leadership. We have to build peace at the grassroots level. And now we need to focus towards the new generation. What I'm more concerned is that our generation, all who we are present here, I don't think there is any problem whatsoever.
Well, Fetch, I would be interrupting you. We have to finish this meeting and time is up. So we would start the vote of thanks and then conclude the meeting with normal rituals. So I would request
Just to add one line, Umeshji, that I think it's fantastic to have people from the US, Pakistan, India, and of course the Philippines here. So thank you all for attending. It was fantastic. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I would now request Mukesh Malhotra to propose a vote of thank, and that will be followed by a joke from our Sandeep. And if Vardhamanji is there, we would like to listen his 4 lines. Thank you.
Well,
Mukesh.
as I already said, Beena, thank you so much for coming online and talking to us and expressing your hopes. I can only wish that there were more people like you, both are in both our countries, and that this voice of the silent majority, which even Faiz referred to, could actually overcome the what would you call it, the cacophony of hate and diatribe that goes on in both sides, and that we can actually come to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I want to interrupt for just 1 minute, because when you said you wish that there were more people like me, so you are all there. It's not just me, right? So we all have. So I think when it becomes we, then we can move forward more strongly. I just wanted to interrupt with that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, perfectly all right. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We are all there, and that is what I said. I wish the voice of the silent majority like us actually overpowers the cacophony of hate and diatribe that keeps happening especially on social media, which has become a bane of our lives, I think. And I think it's about time that we all kind of got together and tried to do something about it. And I can only hope for the best. And I hope that in our own generation, we can do something. I am a very avid follower of everything that happens around. I recently read a book by Parvez Hoodboy, which I would recommend everyone to read, which really talks about the history and the geography and the reasons why we, to some extent, are where we are, and how we could probably get out of it. I thank you very much, and I hope that we can continue this dialogue wherever we are. And I'd love to come and see you whenever I'm in the US next. My sister is in Boston at Howard, and I'd like to put the two of you together if it's possible. I'll ask Ganesh to get in touch and do that. I'm
Lovely.
sure
Thank
she'll
you.
enjoy meeting you immensely. She's an educationist and working at the as a Harvard fellow there just now. Thank you very much.